I must apologize to families who are bereaved, who have lost loved ones during COVID, and those who in the past few weeks were upset. What we aim to do is to release bodies as soon as possible. What the coroner's process is one that engages several functionaries, not just the coroner's office. I have my staff, complement of two police officers. Sometimes we do have human resource challenges where staff short or sick, or in our case we lost 2 members of staff, and condolences to all the families who have lost members. And I empathize with those who wanted clearance, and it was not as timely as we had hoped because of some obstacles, either due to COVID or not having a doctor sign in, or human error in filing, or whatever the case may be. We're sorry about the delays. In my office, we are up to date for the most part, but the coroner's court is a court that depends on many functionaries. And when I say that, we depend on the police are to submit the natural and the sudden death forms and unnatural death forms. And these forms are to be submitted in a timely fashion, and quite often the forms are sent late, or there are mistakes on the forms, or family members may give a name that is not on the national ID card, or the ID card number might be missing from the form. So then my staff, they have to call and to get the relevant information in order to complete the form, and that delays the process somewhat. And then sometimes we have officers who maybe on weekend and may go off and forget to submit the work, and all that contribute to the delay. And the police, we work very closely with the police, and we have a very good relationship. Apart from the police, the medical practitioners, they sign a certificate, and quite often the doctor will say, I'm going to sign the certificate, but then on looking at the notes or on further examining of the information of the relevant client, the doctor will say, oh, sorry, coroner, I can't issue a certificate. So a few days would have gone by. So in order to speed up the process, we have to backtrack and get a swab. That swab is done to determine whether the person is COVID positive or negative, and quite often it comes back in 24 hours because we do have protocols within the office. The swabs come back in 24 hours, then we request a post-mortem, and the post-mortem can take between 3 to 10 days for post-mortem. And quite often when we get the report, it comes back, the undertaker is involved, another functionary. So apart from the staff, the police, the medical practitioners, or the pathologists, we have the undertakers. And undertakers are supposed not to give family members unreasonable expectations. And quite often, people traveling from overseas, they may travel after learning of the death of a loved one, and they expect to have the funeral. They come on the Friday, on the Monday, but it does not always work out in that way. Sometimes we can have funerals and releases one day, in some instances, 3 days, and sometimes it can go up to 20 days. But for the most part, we try to expedite the clearance of the deceased, so that the deceased can be buried and people can have closure. The function of the coroner is very important because it informs the public health officials when we look at the medical reports and the information and statistics, it tells us whether there are any trends in terms of people dying, what are they dying from. And during COVID, we were taxed because we had to check to see before we do postmortems, because of the engineering at the hospital and at the Forensic Science Center. We had to be careful not to introduce it into those institutions and not to expose the staff or the death care workers like undertakers to COVID, because it was evolving. We were trying to find out more and more about it. So what we do swabs when there's a post-mortem or unnatural. In the case of unnatural death, or if the person is unknown, or if the person is found, we do post-mortems. And we send off the paperwork and it comes back. And then once we get all these processes together, then I do the last thing, assigning the release. And the release goes out to the undertaker. We call the family. We express our condolences to the family. We inform the undertaker and the place where the body is being stored to release the body to relevant family undertaker. What we have been doing is that we've been releasing bodies where the doctor is willing to sign and he writes the certificate, and the person's been seeing a doctor within 3 months of death. And quite often people here do not go to the doctor very often. They tend to look at alternate remedies, whether it be bush tea or some other treatment. And then what happens quite often, when they die, they might not have gone to the doctor for a whole year or more. And they have the view that they were healthy, no need to go to the doctor. But at death, it poses a problem because there's no one to sign, and then we have the process of the requirement for post-mortem. And because of the requirement for post-mortem, as I said, it takes 3 to 10 days. So we cannot expedite the clearance of these bodies as quickly as we would like. Sometimes we have doctors who will submit reports and they're vague and they do not really say what the cause of death is. So we have to send it back to be amended. And we send that back to be amended. It must come back within 24 hours after we make the request. So it's a total of 72 hours. And if 72 hours pass and the amendment has not been made, that's from the time the doctor issues up until the period for the amendment. Then we fast track the process by asking for a swab and having a post-mortem, because we do not want to delay bodies being released. So the process in the coroner's office, it is not just the coroner, it's a number of players who are involved, who are engaged, who work together as a cohesive unit. And at the end of it, the death is registered in the registry from the different jurisdictions. And we have people who complain because they do not know the process. So it is hoped that we can educate the public as to what the process really is in the coroner's office. When we look at the coroner's process, sometimes we have to engage in investigations to find out what is the true cause of death, because family members always want to find out what caused the death, what attributed to the death of this otherwise healthy person. And if it's sudden, the person is found dead, or if there is say a tragic accident or something like that, then an investigation is conducted, and the police records a statement. And all the coroner does is to seek to ferret out the facts. And at times there is an inquest, and the inquest is more or less inquiry as to the true cause of death. But the coroner is empowered to dispense of an inquest where it is justified. For the most part, during the process, once one is satisfied that the investigation is complete and that there's nothing untoward, that there is no suspicion of crime, then we release the body once we get a certificate. During COVID, we had to, where people died and were COVID positive in the community, we had to wait to get certificates from the CMO, who was very busy, and he's very efficient. And we have to send those police forms with the information to the CMO, that's the Chief Medical Officer. And he will sign and send back the certificate, and we release the bodies. We cannot do postmortems on persons that are COVID positive, as I said earlier, because of the engineering state of the morgue. When we receive those certificates, we contact the funeral home and we get the warrant for burial and release the body right away. So the process can be short. In some instances, 1 day, 3 days, and if it's a protracted investigation or postmortem, it can be up to 20 days. It does not necessarily go to 20 days, it might go 7 or 8 days. I just want to be clear with regards to persons who are found to be positive and are suspected to be engaged in crime or to be the subjects of crime. Even though the general thing is that you do not do autopsies on people who die naturally from comorbidities and COVID, and it's COVID associated. Where crime is suspected or someone is maybe likely to be charged, then the forensic pathologist, he has to find a way in law to carry out the autopsy because it has an evidential value to say what is the cause of death. It is of no use to say indeterminate in such cases when there's suspicion of a murder or some crime, some heinous crime has been committed. So though the person would have died and they're positive, a way has to be found with reduced risk. I guess they will wear the appropriate gear at a location other than the hospital or forensic science center to carry out these autopsies in order to, in the interest of justice and in the public interest, to make sure that there is closure. Who did it? Who committed this crime? So those autopsies, because of the medical legal aspect to it, those autopsies have to be carried out. Those are natural deaths. Yeah, a natural death is where the person had an underlying condition, diabetes, for a number of years, and the doctor will write in a column on the certificate, maybe 10 years or 5 years. Then they would say if there was some other underlying comorbidity, he would insert that. The doctor shows that he knew what the person definitely died from, and that the person is old, and pneumonia, some forms of pneumonia he would indicate, and naturally there's no violence involved, there's no crime suspected. That's natural. Whereas unnatural is where it's sudden or tragic, or the body has been found mutilated, or suicide is suspected. That's what we say is unnatural. And then we tend to refer a lot of these unnatural bodies, death bodies, to the forensic pathologist. And the forensic pathologist will be able to give us a clear indication in his report as to the cause of death. Sometimes if the body is too badly decomposed, like it is found somewhere in a field or somewhere else, there's always a problem of identity. and we have to look at engaging people who are experts in the area. We look at dental records, etc., etc. It's not easy at times to bring closure to some cases because of the lack of information. Say, for instance, a person is an illegal immigrant who is found dead somewhere. It may take a little longer than someone who is known in the community, was missing for a day or two, and you can piece it together. So in terms of unnatural deaths, we always seek to deal with those expeditiously because they have a medical legal aspect to it, and that it may wind up in the court where someone may be charged, and you do not want to have people walking free who should be brought to justice for committing a crime.